Welcome to What the Tech, where we deliver the freshest technology news with simple, useful explanations. We're all about cutting right through the hype and the spin to bring you news you can actually use. Now, I am absolutely thrilled to share this explainer with you today because we are tackling what's arguably the biggest narrative in the world right now. You know the one, the idea that artificial intelligence is this cheap, infinite resource just waiting to take over human jobs tomorrow. I mean, if you just glance at the headlines, you'd think human workers are already completely obsolete. But when you actually roll up your sleeves and look at the raw data, the actual finances, and the massive hardware requirements, a totally different reality emerges. Today, we're breaking down the hidden cost of AI. And as you'll see, for the vast majority of companies out there, human beings are actually the far cheaper option.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a bombshell quote that completely shatters this myth of cheap AI labor. This comes from Brian Cantanzaro, the vice president of applied deep learning at NVIDIA. In a recent interview with Axios, he said, quote, "For my team, the cost of compute is far beyond the cost of the employees." I mean, really think about that for a second. This isn't just some random skeptic talking. This is a high-level executive at NVIDIA. They're literally the company powering the entire AI revolution, and he's admitting that right now, the computing power required to run these advanced models is vastly more expensive than just paying human workers to do the exact same tasks.
And you know what's really fascinating? The academic research perfectly backs up that industry experience. There was a 2024 study out of MIT that looked at the technical requirements of the AI models you'd actually need to perform jobs at a human level. Well, they found that AI automation is economically viable in only 23% of roles where vision is a primary part of the work. To put that into perspective, that means a massive 77% of the time, it is straight up cheaper to have a human being doing the work. The economics simply don't support this idea of a massive immediate displacement of the workforce, because honestly, the machines are just way too expensive to run right now.
Section 1. Why compute breaks the bank.
So if AI is basically just software, why on earth is it draining so much money? Let me be your jargon translator for a quick second here, to explain. There are two main phases in an AI's life cycle, training and inference. Now, training is the phase everyone talks about. This is where companies are spending billions of dollars on massive clusters of specialized chips and those immense energy-hungry cooling systems just to build and teach the model. But the real hidden financial drain happens after the model is built, during the phase called inference. This is the ongoing computing power and the massive energy consumed every single time you, or a company, asks the model to do something.
So, the crucial point is that high-throughput inference is the absolute core technical bottleneck we're facing today. You see, inference isn't just a one-and-done cost. Every single time an AI agent analyzes a piece of data, or generates a line of code, or answers a customer service prompt, a meter is running. It requires massive amounts of electricity and server power. If a company relies on AI for millions of tasks a day, those individual little requests compound into astronomical operating costs very, very quickly.
And unfortunately, the costs don't stop there. We've got to factor in what I call the hidden cost multipliers. McKinsey actually estimates that AI-related spending could surge to $7.9 trillion by 2030 at an accelerated pace, which is mostly driven by crazy expensive data center power and IT equipment. But there is a massive human cost multiplier here, too. AI is fallible. It makes things up, which is what we call hallucinations. Because of this, companies still have to pay human supervisors to babysit the AI, catch its errors, and fix all the edge cases. In fact, in one wild instance, an engineer reported that an AI agent literally destroyed his network from overuse. So when you have to pay for the AI, the massive energy to run it, and the human to fix its mistakes, your labor savings completely vanish.
Moving on to Section 2, the Big Tech Paradox.
And this brilliantly illustrates the contradiction we're seeing right now. If AI is currently more expensive than human workers, why are the biggest tech companies laying off thousands of people while pouring absolute billions into AI? Well, consider this massive jump in spending. According to Morgan Stanley, Big Tech has announced $740 billion in capital expenditures this year alone. That's a staggering 69% increase from 2025. Yet, according to layoffs.fyi, we have already seen more than 92,000 tech layoffs in 2026 so far, across nearly 100 companies. That far outpaces last year's rate. I mean, Meta alone laid off 10% of its workforce, which is around 8,000 people. They are literally slashing human payrolls to fund infrastructure that right now operates at a major premium. Even Uber's chief technology officer recently admitted that its AI budget was already completely blown away.
So how in the world do we make sense of this? Well, Keith Lee,
A professor over at the Swiss Institute of Artificial Intelligence has a pretty perfect term for it. He calls it a short-term mismatch. Tech companies are basically caught in this bizarre transition period. They absolutely know the unit economics currently favor humans, but they're terrified of being left behind. The FOMO is real. So they're making massive capital investments into the future infrastructure of AI today, even while they hemorrhage money on operating costs and lack any widespread data to prove AI is actually displacing jobs efficiently.
Now, before we move on to how your business can actually navigate this chaotic landscape, I really want to hear from you. Is big tech just wildly overspending on AI right now, or are they smartly securing their future? Tell us what you think down in the comments. And hey, while you're down there, please remember to hit that like button on this explainer and subscribe to the What the Tech channel so we can keep bringing you clear, unbiased analysis of the freshest technology news.
Section 3. News you can use now. Okay, it's one thing to understand the whole macroeconomic mismatch, but if you're actually running a business, managing a team, or balancing a tight budget, you need actionable advice, right? How do you actually integrate AI without blowing your entire budget on hidden compute costs? Well, if you're on an engineering team, here is your rapid-fire checklist. First things first, stop looking at flat subscription fees and start measuring the actual cost per task. You've got to optimize your models, use technical tricks like quantization and pruning, or honestly, just use smaller, specialized models for routine tasks. Make sure you're batching and caching your requests so you aren't doing the exact same expensive compute twice. Use spot capacity for workloads that aren't time-sensitive, and absolutely crucially, monitor your failure modes. Tracking hallucination rates and human-in-the-loop time is a real financial necessity here, because every single time that AI fails, you are paying for the mistake twice.
Let's move to and see how this builds for the product and finance leaders out there. Look, your strategy requires a total mindset shift. Step 1. You have to build a strict total cost of ownership model. You must objectively compare the true cost of AI, the hardware, the energy, and the inevitable error remediation against human salaries and benefits. With AI software fees jumping anywhere from 20% to 37% recently, those flat subscriptions might literally be burning a hole in your pocket. Step 2. Pilot usage-based pricing so you're only paying for what you actually consume. And finally, Step 3. Stage your adoption. Treat AI as a productivity multiplier and a helpful assistant first, rather than a full-on replacement, at least until those unit economics start to make sense.
Section 4. When will AI get cheaper? We know we're in a short-term mismatch, but just how short is short-term? When do the economics finally cross that tipping point where silicon consistently beats a human salary? Well, according to the analyst firm Gartner, that tipping point is approaching fast. They forecast that the inference costs for these massive 1 trillion parameter models will plummet by more than 90% over the next 4 years. 90%! That is a staggering drop that's going to completely flip the economic equation. But cost alone isn't enough. The industry also needs to shift entirely toward usage-based pricing to align incentives, and most importantly, reliability absolutely must scale up. AI has to become predictable, because fewer hallucinations mean less human oversight, and that is when AI truly becomes a clear labor substitute.
And hey, if you're sitting there thinking you're way behind the curve on all this, don't worry. Federal Reserve data shows that by the end of 2025, despite a massive 68% growth rate in the sector, only 18% of U.S. companies had actually adopted AI tools. That means 82% have not yet adopted them. The vast majority of the market is still just sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the technology to prove it can actually integrate effectively without breaking the bank. There is still massive room for market shifts once those inference costs finally drop.
So, we're left looking at a horizon that is rushing toward us. Right now, today, human beings are still the best, most cost-effective solution for most complex tasks. But if Gartner's forecast holds true and the cost of operating these incredibly powerful AI models drops by 90% in just a few short years, it forces us to ask a really difficult question. When AI inference costs finally hit rock bottom, what happens to the human workforce? It really isn't a matter of if, but when. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time on What the Tech.